Harry Potter is incredible. 8 films and not one is bad. I think each of the films are at least above average, with a few being genuinely great. This is what makes me so disappointed about the Fantastic Beasts franchise. With the second film now out, I want to talk about why I think the first film put the rest of the franchise in a hole that is going to be very difficult to recover from. Going into Fantastic Beasts, expectations were extraordinarily high because of the franchise it is connected to. Fair or unfair, it's almost impossible to separate your feelings from Harry Potter when watching this film. But no matter how you look at the film, I think it is impossible to not see its flaws. The biggest issues with the film is how tonally unfocused it is. Half of the film doesn't take itself too seriously, with the fun adventure and finding these exotic creatures, while we follow some very endearing characters. It gives us a chance to explore more of the world through the eyes of Newt. There are some underlying themes of capitalism and the injustices that we often put on animals that we don't understand. Instead of following through with this fun atmosphere that the film promised the audience, we are given a darker side to the film with Ezra Miller's side plot. The side plot is not only a complete 180 on the tone of the film, but it also adds themes of religion and abuse that make it far too much for this one film to really explore any of the ideas it sets up. Cutting from Newt searching for his quirky creatures to Raditz murdering a politician is a jarring way to pace the movie. And the end result is a film that feels hollow and unfocused. This being said, the movie is far from being terrible, but it's forgettable because it never attempts to give us a solid answer to the questions it brings up. This is incredibly frustrating when the film is set in an already brilliantly established world, and the mastermind behind the story is one of the most celebrated writers of the 21st century. It is inevitable to look to J.K. Rowling for the film's problems. The directing and the acting and the editing are all above average, but the writing feels sloppy and unedited, as if there was no pushback on any of the ideas that were trying to be pursued. I want to take a look at The Sorcerer's Stone versus Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and look at how one of the films is almost textbook in how it follows the basic rules of storytelling, and how the other seems to throw those ideas out the window. Both films have a general lighthearted tone to them. Sorcerer's Stone is kids working to solve a mystery, and in Fantastic Beasts, our characters have to go around New York City and capture the beasts that have gotten loose. To start out the series, The Sorcerer's Stone does a great job to keep a consistent tone throughout. There may be darker moments, but they are worked into the plot subtly and never take too much focus from the fun kid story. It also works really well as the first film in a franchise. It sets up the main characters and the main conflict. From the start of the film, we know how important Harry will be, and we know that he's going to have to fight Voldemort, and that Voldemort is the antagonist of the series. The movie also hints to a much darker world. This opens up opportunities for filmmakers such as Alfonso Cuarón with The Prisoner of Azkaban to take the story in new directions. The Sorcerer's Stone doesn't promise too much, but it delivers on what it does promise. And the same cannot be said for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Fantastic Beasts puts the rest of the franchise in a hole. The first film has us being focused about these interesting creatures and this small core of characters, but the reveal of Grindelwald at the end makes our main characters almost useless for the rest of the films in the franchise. The main conflict of the series going forward is Grindelwald attempting to purify the wizarding world, and to do so with Raditz. But our four main characters from the first film, Newt, Queenie, Jacob, and Tina, all have nothing to do with that. Grindelwald's fight is with Dumbledore in the Ministry of Magic. Unlike Harry, who is absolutely as connected as you could be with his villain, our main characters have very little to do with Grindelwald, outside of Newt and Dumbledore's relationship. Newt, our protagonist, feels like a side character going on for the rest of the franchise, a plot tool to one day bring the main emotional conflict of Dumbledore and Grindelwald together. Newt is just Dumbledore's pawn and feels like he could be replaced by anyone, which is a shame of how interesting Newt is and could potentially be. Having four main characters be potentially irrelevant to the plot moving forward is a pretty shaky way to start off a franchise. And thematically, the series is a mess. There are too many themes to be explored, and the force of the plot to come won't give the next films much of a chance to attempt to do so. The second movie is set up to fail because most of our main characters that we connect with in the first are inevitably going to have little to do in future conflicts that are going to arise. Fantastic Beasts should be a learning experience for future filmmakers. Even if your story takes place in a brilliant world, your film has good direction and is written by one of the most celebrated writers of the 21st century, you cannot forget the basics of storytelling. No matter how ambitious your film is, if you don't understand the rules of storytelling or know what the purpose of those rules are, the only result you will be able to achieve is mediocrity. A story that isn't terrible and at times can be compelling, but holds no candle to the craft and creativity that goes into a masterpiece. This is the label that I would give to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and a label that a genius like J.K. Rowling should never receive.